Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, August 9th, 2017, and this is episode 28. My name is Carol and I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog at astitchintimepodcast.blogspot.ca, and they can also be found in the episode thread in the Ravelry group, and that can be found by searching A Stitch in Time Podcast under the Groups tab. Come and join the Agatha Christie Along, a knit and crochet along that I am holding in conjunction with reading my way through my Agatha Christie collection. I'm probably about 25% through, and it's taken me from the beginning of the year till now, so this knit along could be going on for a very long time. I've recently introduced a prize factor to it, so each month I will be awarding a pattern worth up to $10 US that's giftable on Ravelry. And I am just taking all the projects right from the beginning of the knit along and drawing from those projects. So even though each project can only be drawn or can only win one time, if you have entered multiple projects, then you might win more than once. So it's just a little more of an incentive to take part in that. Just this morning, I also added a what are you making thread. Obviously, if you watch the podcast, you get to see what I'm up to every week, but I'm interested to see what you're making. So whether it be any sort of craft project, or maybe a recipe that you've recently tried that you like, or an old faithful recipe that you've recently made and would like to share with us, by all means, please do so. I think a lot of us get inspiration from other knitters on Ravelry, and I know I'm always either from watching other podcasts or from seeing what various people are knitting. I get very inspired to try those patterns too. So by all means, share what you're up to. Lots to talk about this week. I have one finished project and multiple works in progress. I think a couple that you haven't seen yet. And lots to talk about what's been going on this week. It's been a very good week. It's been a really busy week, but a really great week. So I'm looking forward to telling you about that. So tuck in with a cold or hot beverage of your choice and get ready for some knitting talk. It is very hot and humid here today. I might look a little bit different. I forewent makeup today, except for a little bit of eyeliner and mascara. So this is how you get me today. It's how I look most days. And most days I don't even wear mascara. So here I am. Take me or leave me. Trying to hydrate. It's definitely just really sticky today. I just feel shiny. I'm glowing today. Women glow, right? They don't sweat, so I'm definitely glowing today. Anyway, so my finished project that I'm so excited to show you is my Sprites Fin Shawl. Hooray! It is off the needles and blocked. I ended up doing 10 extra repeats of the lace pattern in the final section, and I used up 130 grams out of my, I think it was 150 grams skein, so I'm very happy with that. And blocked, it measures about 82 inches by 32 inches. So I'll show you very slowly this time. I love how it came out. Now it's there. I'm going to hold it back there to start so you can actually see the colors more richly, which is how they really do look in real life. Look how pretty that feather and fan shows up. I love that section most of all, I think. And yes, it keeps going and going. And I just blocked it out. I kind of pinned the top straight, and then I just laid the rest out kind of flat, and just kind of maneuvered these ripples into place on my blocking mat. So I did a very basic kind of blocking on it, not a lot of stretching and pulling and pinning. But now I'll hold it up so you can maybe see the whole thing. So yay, I'm so happy. It is just a beautiful size to wrap up in, which is what I wanted. Like, look, I can do this when it's, it mostly probably spring and fall, because I think it might be too light for winter, but it wraps up really nice. It will stay on my shoulders really well in the evening if I'm knitting or reading. So, yay! If you've watched before, you know the yarn is Fleece Artist Saldana in the Hemlock colorway. And I thoroughly enjoyed knitting this, even though, sorry, I'm just trying to find the right and wrong side to put it down. Even though it took me a long time, excuse me while I reach out a frame just to lay it on the end of the ironing board here. Yeah, I really enjoyed that knit right up till the end. Even though I think, I know I told you last week about some ripping back I had to do, and I had to do a little bit of that on another pattern row after that too, but it wasn't quite as drastic a process, thankfully. And yeah, it was a good one to, we've had company this week, so it was a good project to be able to work on and still talk to people. So yeah, done, finally. Okay, got lots on the go, lots and lots. I'll start with my Blind Venus socks. These are just my plain vanilla socks that I use for TV and travel knitting. So here they are. Last time you saw them a couple of weeks ago, I had just got the heels in and done, I think, the first little bit. So I'm not much further along, but I have worked on them a bit, and I've got a couple of inches done after the heel. So going somewhere in the car tomorrow, so I can do a little bit more knitting on them tomorrow. So the yarn is this opal Hunter Twassers, I have no idea how you say that. It's based on this painting here, the colors, and it's by Opal, and the color is 750 Blind Venus. So there we go. So enjoying those. I love these colors. I love how they're knitting up. It's really fun to see the next little bit come up. And as I mentioned before, I love how some of the sections have a bit of variegation to them. So that makes it even more interesting to knit. So yeah, I've got those done. The second project that I'm working on this week is my August Sock Bash socks for the Grocery Girls Knit Along. Last week I talked to you about wanting to knit a pattern called Heat Wave, and I purchased the pattern on Ravelry and received a message I hadn't received before, which is that the designer had to accept my payment before I would receive the pattern. And it's a week later and I still have not heard from the designer. I emailed her and messaged her, so I'm going to cancel that purchase. And I decided to move on. So my yarn, as I mentioned last week, is by Manos del Uruguay, called Alegria. And the color is Fuego, which means fire. Which, given our current wildfire situation here in British Columbia, I thought was rather a fitting colorway. I'd actually chosen it based on the color, and then when I saw what it was called, I thought, well, that's even more fitting. And here's a look at what that looks like. It's a little bit less, yeah, it's not quite as orangey as it's showing now, but pretty much. Thinking in my shirt they look the same, and this is a little bit darker. I just try to find something to put it against that's not going to set the color off, but anyway. So the pattern I decided on instead is called Girl on Fire, and that's a pattern by Cookie A. And the theme for the August sock bash that you can earn extra points on is lace, so these fit in really well for that. And, sorry, looking for places to put things. I did get started on these, and there we go. I've got the setup chart done and the about half the first repeat of the leg chart. So there you can see it has kind of a nice tile pattern, and it's a very it's similar to monkey in that it's a very predictable, repetitive pattern, and so it's a nice one to work on. I'm going to see if I can get this in just a little bit closer so you can see. There we go. So you can see the yarn has a couple of different shades of red, and it's got this brown, and then kind of this what's showing up as white here is actually more like a kind of a pale corally color. There you go. You can see it there. That helps. Yeah, it looks fine. There, that's how it looks. More coral than white. Anyway, I'm happy with how they're knitting up so far. I like the way that the colors are kind of distributing themselves through this pattern. So, as you can see, not too far along, but enjoying them so far. And I'm keeping them in my moose bag that I made. Seem to match pretty well. Okay, so rest that up there. Don't want it to go crashing down. Okay, good. So yeah, I'm going to flip my show notes. Okay, this is a spoiler alert. The next two projects that I'm going to show you are for the anthology Mystery Knit Along by Very Busy Monkey. So if you don't want to be spoiled, look away for a few minutes. I'll start with the socks, seeing as we're on a sock kick. The yarn I am using for this is Hazel Knits Entice. Oops, that's not showing up very well. Sorry, the lights there. I don't know. Hazel Knits Entice. It was a naughty skein, which meant I had a little bit that was separate from the main skein. And this is the color, Cirrus, like the cloud. So I have, last week I believe I had Clue 1 done on one sock. So this week I finished Clue 1 on the second sock, and I now have Clue 1 and 2 done on one sock. So I really like the way they're knitting up. It's a very interesting pattern. I think Clue 1 took us to about there last week. Is that right? Yeah. And so there's Clue 2 coming along very nicely. So I'm interested to see what Stephanie has in store for us for Clue 3. I suspect we'll probably be heading into the heel flap pretty soon, if not right away. So liking those. They fit really nicely, and I think the pattern shows off really nicely in this yarn. So happy with those two. And then, oh yeah, and I'm keeping them in my Very Busy Monkey designed bag. And then the shawl, I'm about halfway through Clue 2. I just downloaded them yesterday morning, so the yarn I'm using for that is Madeline Tosh Merino Light, and it's the Begonia Leaf colorway. So it's a very pretty kind of mauvey purple. That color actually shows up pretty well on screen. Maybe a little dustier, but so Clue 1 had us get to about here. I'm going to move this in a little closer too. I think the lighting's not as good. It's the morning still, and still under smoky skies, so the light is not very good. So there we go. So as you can see, it's similar to the socks. The two mystery patterns are always have similarities in the stitch patterns. They're related, and so you can see we're forming now 3 triangular sections, one in the middle, one on each end, and that's where the increasing is happening now. And yeah, kind of a cable-y, that's a pretty good look at it. Kind of a cable happening there. So yeah, those are coming along nicely too. I've forgotten how much, I just love Tosh Merino Light. It's so soft and light to work with. The actual knitting experience is really enjoyable, in addition to enjoying the stitch pattern. So I've had a lot of fun on that project too. I'm actually loving all my projects now, which is really nice. Because, that's not always the case. Sometimes you kind of muddle through with one just to see the end product. But right now I'm enjoying everything. Okay, so spoilers are over. The final thing I'm working on is we got the new pattern for the Shawl Society 2. It's called Rune by Helen Stewart. So I'm going to come in really close on this one too. So as you can see, it is a or a triangular shaped 2-color shawl. And so the main color is interrupted by a short eyelet rose in the contrast, and then the contrast color is used for the end border here. So I thought that I would take Helen's lead and, I'll show you the yarn I chose. So I decided I'm going to knit this for my daughter. So I wanted to choose colors I knew she'd like. So this is, see, again, the turquoise, they never show up properly. It's more in this color family, but it's not quite as light. The yarn is Luette Gems, and this in the fingering weight, and this is Caribbean Blue. So that's the solid, and then I chose this speckled yarn, and yeah, see how this is more turquoisey? This is this turquoise exactly. So while they don't look like they match perfectly here, in fact, they're a very good match. So this yarn with the speckles is from Knit Picks. It's called Hawthorn in the Cosmic Speckle colorway. So they really, trust me, they really do go together super well. So yeah, I thought I would take Helen's lead and use the darker color for color A and the lighter color for color B. And so I got about 15% of the way through. Whoops, I'm going to lose a skein here just a second. So I've got 3 repeats of the speckles. So I got this far and I started second guessing myself. I thought that the speckly yarn was kind of lost in this stripe. In fact, it almost looks muddy. So I thought, well, what would it look like if I reversed it? So I thought, well, why not? I'm not that far into things. Let's give that a try. And so I did, and I'm glad I did, because this is actually the version I prefer. So as you can see, the stripes are more pronounced in the blue, and then I really get to show off that speckly yarn to its advantage. And I know it would have been shown off in the border, but I wanted it to be more prominent in the shawl itself. So there's a close-up look. Now if you can see it here, yeah, that's a pretty good look there. Along the spine of the shawl, there is like a lace pattern here that's meant to represent runes. Pardon me. So you can see kind of a triangular lace shape going down the spine. So that just adds in a little bit extra interest as you're knitting it, so it's not, you have to pay attention a little bit in the middle, and otherwise it's just garter stitch the rest of the row. So it's a nice balanced kind of project that's simple and yet has something to keep your interest. So yeah, I really like, especially seeing it on camera like this, I like how that's shaping up. So I'm glad I went ahead with that decision to switch them up. I think it is a better choice. And again, I'll just compare them. It's not that this is bad. I just think that's better. So There we go. So that's what I've been knitting on. As you can see, I've actually had quite a bit of time to knit, and I've been enjoying it. A little bit of reading this week. I'm carrying on with Murder in Three Acts, also called Three-Act Tragedy by Agatha Christie, a little bit further than the last time I spoke to you. So the story's starting to move along now. Most nights I'm just too tired by the time I go to bed to read, and it's just been too busy for the most part during the day. I'd rather knit while the light's good, or if I'm visiting with people I can knit, but I can't really read. So not much to talk about there. So maybe talking about my week, I will start off with the weather. As I mentioned, it's very hot and humid, and it continues to be smoky. We haven't seen our mountains since last Monday. When I recorded Wednesday, I showed you pictures of our smoky skies that are completely obscuring the mountains around us, and it's remained that way all week. Towards the evening, we get a little bit of a glimpse of the outline of the smaller mountains that are closer to us, but we haven't seen our beautiful mountain view for over a week. It is not expected to change until there is a change in the weather. Good news is we are expecting, or they are predicting, some showers beginning on Saturday. So hopefully that will change the wind pattern. What's happening is the smoke is being blown out of the interior of British Columbia towards the coast and through all the valleys, and until that weather pattern shifts, the smoke will continue to travel that way, which is why we've been covered. I think I saw a thing on the news last night. I think they said 2/3 of the province is covered in smoke, and they show pictures taken by NASA from space that show the smoke hanging over our province. So Vancouver has had very poor air quality also. Our air quality here has been usually in the 7 to 8 range out of 10 as far as risk factor goes, 10 being the highest. It has not been as bad as Kamloops, which is a city in the interior that's closer to some of the major fires and just where it's situated. They had, I think it was the other day, they had 10 plus as their air quality. So it's it's not fun. We can feel it. I've spent most of the week with kind of a heavy chest. You might be able to hear the gravelly sound in my voice a little bit. Some days I just don't feel well. It's hard to explain. Not quite a headache, but a certain sort of heaviness in my head, like or cloudiness, kind of how you feel when you're starting to get a cold. So our eyes at various times have been irritated. The particulates are so fine that they penetrate indoors, even if you have all your windows closed. And so, while I try and for the most part, keep our windows closed during the day, it's just so muggy and hot that I have to open them at some point and just let some air through. And it's, you're choosing one over the other, and both are bad. So the good news is that apparently once the smoke goes away, it doesn't have any lasting effects on the respiratory system. So that's good news. And hopefully we only have to sort of deal with it for a couple more days. Meanwhile, I just stay indoors most of the time and try not to exert myself too much, which means I'm not working out. That's a bad thing and a good thing, I guess. It is what it is. The wildfire situation continues to be terrible. British Columbia has been under a state of emergency for several weeks now, and it's been extended. As of this morning, there were 146 wildfires burning, 27 of note, which means they're larger ones. It is the worst fire season since 1958. Currently, there are about 7,000 people under evacuation order because this year so many of the fires have been close to populated areas. But thankfully, many residents have been allowed to return home, but they do remain, a lot of them, on evacuation alert. So it doesn't mean the fires are completely out in that area, but that they're contained enough that they feel that personal safety is not at risk. The Elephant Hill fire, which is the one that I've been talking about because it affects both the town where my mom lives and also our vacation property not far from there. Last week it was 85,000 hectares. This week it is now over 117,000. So part of that growth is due to controlled burns or back burns that are being done in an effort to control the fire. Part of that's also due to better mapping. When the smoke clears, the maps are refigured. But a lot of that is due to fire growth itself. As each report says, there's daily reports on the fire, and they always read that extremely dry weather and volatile winds continue to make this a difficult fire to fight. And the terrain doesn't help either. A lot of it's very hilly with gullies, and that sends the winds all sorts of different directions. So my mom continues to be under evacuation order, so she continues to be in the Chilliwack, in Chilliwack where I live. She's moved now from one sister's house to another, and she'll be coming Sunday to spend some time with us. She's fine as far as, obviously she's safe. I know she'd like to go home. Who wouldn't? They seem to be doing a very good job controlling the fire in regards to Clinton itself. They've been doing a number of back burns. I think it was last week. I think it was last week, maybe the week before, I showed you some pictures of Clinton itself with the fire, and I said they were trying to keep the fire behind this ridge that runs along through town. Well, it has crossed the ridge. It's come down the other side, but they've been doing back burns on it and seems to be holding. And if there's a little fire that, spark that ignites a new fire, they're getting on it right away. As far as our vacation property, that area of the fire seems to be moving south away from where it began rather than west, which is towards our vacation property. So that seems to be, at this point, it's very safe. It's quite a distance away. So hopefully that remains the case. Of course, every time you wish it goes somewhere else, or you wish it away from you, it means it's going somewhere else and affects someone else. And so it's kind of you don't wish ill on anyone, obviously. But firefighters are working really hard to protect property. There is a neighbor of my mom's, just lives about 3 doors down, and that family decided not to leave. So if you disobey an evacuation order, you basically become under house arrest. So they have to remain in their home and yard and are not allowed to leave. And if they are caught leaving that area, then they will be forcibly evacuated. Well, I don't personally agree with staying behind. I think you're putting yourselves at risk and also getting in the way of firefighting efforts. I'll get off my soapbox now. What is nice is that this person is posting every day on Facebook and giving updates from her perspective. And since she is just so close to my mom, I can literally see what my mom would be seeing were she home. So I know my mom keeps updated with that, and she's actually called her and chatted with her too and gotten a first-hand account of what's going on, or I guess first-hand as far as she's being told. As I also mentioned, my niece was supposed to get married up at our vacation property last Saturday, August 5th, And because of the fire and the evacuation order, that wasn't possible. So the wedding was moved down closer to home. It was held at my sister's, the mother of the bride's aunt's property. I say that it's my sister's aunt. It's not my aunt. My oldest sister is actually my half-sister. Her mom passed away when she was very young. Then my dad married my mom, and we were all raised together. So she's my sister. But in cases like this, you kind of have to explain. Anyway, the wedding was held at her aunt's and uncle's place. They have a 5-acre piece of property with lots of trees and beautiful garden, like vegetable gardens and flower gardens. And it actually was a lovely setting. Everything fell into place. They were able to rent a big tent to have for where we had dinner and a dance floor. They got married out in the garden. Basically, the plans just got moved from one location to another. So same foods. They had barbecue set up, and all my my sons and the other kind of cousins that in that age, that generation, all the guys, because I guess barbecuing's a guy thing. I don't know. I barbecue at my house, but anyway, all the guys barbecued hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken, and there were different salads and sides set out. Nobody went hungry, that's for sure. One of my sisters decorated cupcakes that were just beautiful, and the mother of the bride's, well, I guess the bride's aunt, her dad's sister-in-law. Does it matter? No. Someone else made a whole bunch of tarts. So I'll put some pictures in here of the desserts because they were beautiful and delicious. I won't share pictures of the wedding. I'm trying on the podcast to be really conscious of not posting pictures of other people, simply out of respect for their privacies. But I assure you, my niece looked just beautiful, and her groom looked very handsome, and everybody was happy. We had just a lovely, lovely family time. And the only difference is if we'd been up at our vacation property, we were going to have a big a spaghetti dinner the night before with different friends and family that would have come into town for the wedding. And the wedding itself probably would have lasted longer into the evening, and of course we would have had the next day to be together too. So in this case, those of us who didn't live very close to where the wedding was held didn't have as much of a chance to help out with setting up the wedding, although we did go a little bit beforehand, a couple hours, and help with some last-minute setup and food prep. And then a number of us stayed behind after to take down tables and chairs and put food away, etc. So we did what we could, but I know we would have been able to help more if we'd been up there at the cabins. But all in all, it was a very, very successful Plan B. Everything went off. They're married, so that was the most important part. And I think it's a wedding they'll look back on and be very happy with. So that was good. So I have my sister from Toronto, Jacqueline, and her husband Ed. They arrived on last Thursday, and so Friday evening I invited my two other sisters who live locally with their husbands, and my mom came over, and we did appy night all together. We all brought something and had a really nice visit. And then, of course, the wedding was on Saturday, and very lazy Sunday. It was really nice, actually. I think we were all ready to just kind of go, ah. And then Monday morning, Jacqueline and Ed took off for a couple of days. They were planning to have friends come up to the cabin after the wedding to stay with them a couple of days. And since that couldn't happen, they went to their friends who live just off of Vancouver Island, on a small island just off of the main island. And so they are coming back sometime today. So I thought I'd podcast this morning. It usually takes the better part of a day to upload and edit. So hopefully I'll be done by the time they get home. It depends what ferry they get on their way home. But they should be back. And then tomorrow, the girls, meaning two of my sisters and my mom and I, are going to go up to, there's a kind of a historic site on a town not too far from us, maybe a 45-minute drive or so. Pardon me, the town was established during the gold rush, I think, and there's a museum and an old church and apparently a tea house, which my one sister thought might be a fun thing to do. So we're going to go for a drive and do a little go for lunch at this tea house and poke around the historic site for a bit. And then tomorrow night, a bunch of us are getting together at another sister's house for Chinese food. And so it's an easy dinner and one last chance to visit before Jacqueline and Ed leave Friday morning. So it's been lots of family time. It's been very nice having them here. And although it's been really nice to have a couple of days on my own, Monday was a provincial holiday, BC Day. So my husband and I were here on our own, which was really nice, lazy day. Yesterday was a little bit busier. He went back to work and I had some, household jobs to do, but I also had lots of time to knit and just kind of mellow and doing podcast today. And then life gets back to normal Friday once Jacqueline and Ed leave. We are, what I didn't mention before is about a week ago, one of my aunts passed away, and so on Monday we're heading out of town to go to her funeral service with my mom. We're just going for the day. It's close enough. It's far enough that most of the time we wouldn't just go for the day, but it's close enough that we can. And so we'll do that Monday and then bring Mom back here, and she'll be here as long as she needs to be until she gets the all clear to go home. So as long as she's here, I don't foresee myself podcasting. So this may be it for a while. Hopefully she gets to go home sooner rather than later. But as we've seen from other towns that have been allowed to, the evacuation order's been lifted, they've been allowed to go home. There's a lot of work involved in preparation for that. So even if they deemed today that it was safe for people to move home, there's processes that are in place to make sure that the town is equipped to support the population once it returns home. So obviously businesses need to be able to operate, have food supply, fuel supply, etc., etc. So don't anticipate it being, I don't think she'll be home by next week. I would be very surprised. Just the sooner the better, but obviously we want it to be safe before she goes back. So this might be it for a little while. Take care until I talk to you next time. I hope your summer is going well. We have each other and we're all safe, so that's what counts here. And we're having a good time despite some of the ups and downs. But that's kind of how our family is. We try and make the best of things and just enjoy being together. So on that note, take care, happy knitting, and come by, check out the Ravelry group. Join in the Agatha Christie along. I'd love to see what you're working on these days, so don't be shy. Come by and introduce yourself and get to meet this lovely group of people who are regular chatters in that group. We have some very nice members in our Ravelry group, so please come by. So until then, take care. Happy knitting. Bye.